everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and we will discuss on mobilizing capital markets. You know already the COP27 started, so we are organizing this side talk, and especially with different central bank and policy making institution, we are helping to develop policy, and your contribution can help the emerging economy. This COP27 happening in Africa. So we have our friends from Morocco, Dr. Asim Moza. So we will get some great insight from Africa. Besides that, we have our uh, uh, world famous speaker, Professor David Smith and Professor Chin. First, I would like to give chance Dr. Asim Moza. What do you mean mobilizing capital market, and what is the impact of COP27 in Africa?
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you today, and I am very proud that Egypt hosts the COP27 number 27 about the climate change. So we are here all to for adoption of the new trend or new technology to save the environment and also to take about the climate change. So uh, for climate change, a lot of people die because of climate change. Approximately 40% of this are as a result of air, water, and soil pollution. For example, there's an accident happened in Europe country in 2015, and all the people die is about one third of people. So we have to take care and to concentrate about the importance of climate change and the importance of safe the environment. So today I'm talking about how can we save the environment, because for example, the UNA experts suppose that it's about greenhouse gases that reaches record level. It happened 2 or 3 million years ago. NASA statistics say that global temperature have already risen by 1.7 degree. So we have to protect our ecosystem, protect humanity, protect our forest, and it's our moral obligation to for to the earth and to the new generation. So a lot of things we have to do, like reduce, reuse, and cycle. This is the old system, and also like volunteer about educate, conserve water, choose sustainable, shop wisely. This all plant a tree. This is the old tradition for uh, climate change. Or let me say that about 74% of more than 200 influencer environment sustainably agrees that artificial intelligence will help to solve the environment issue, and 64% agrees that the Internet of Things will also take an important role in helping to solve the environment issue. So I concentrate about the new technology cloud of everything, adoption of this technology in Egypt, in Arab country, in African country, in all the world, not only in USA, in Russia, in China, in Asia, but also for Arab and African countries. So we have to concentrate about adoption of this new technology that would help a lot for the environment. Technology play a key role in many sectors of our economy, like agriculture, energy, and industrial, waste and resource management, transport, and we have to develop renewable energy technology for that, saving endangered wildlife, adopting a smarter life cycle, there's a lot. Technology are most likely to help for for planet saver. We have to adopt, like for example, solar glasses, graphene, uh, planet-based plastic, fake meat, batteries, environment sensor, artificial intelligence, a lot of things we have, to adopt, smart grids. So we have to adopt this carbon capture, nuclear we have to adopt this artificial intelligence and IoT and, big data for the, environment monitoring with this, new technology, for example, to solve the climate crisis. For example, we have IoT can keep track of real time to generate target analysis and to make sure that everything is going perfect. For example, Ericsson research predictions that IoT and artificial intelligence can help to reduce the greenhouse emission by 3.9% by 2030. So all I do, I go to different country for awareness of this new technology, IoT, cloud computing, 5G. For example, IoT sensor, can help to perform measurement of carbon consumption and waste and general renewable. And the AI also could save the environment. For example, artificial intelligence, it's a powerful tools and techniques that can work 24 7, can help, to save our planet. Ocean, for example, Ocean Data Alliance uses AI for water pollution, ocean mining, and tracking. For the global fishing watch, we can help of satellite data. AI application, to monitor mosquito population to avoid the spread of different diseases. High resolution maps are used to predict and prepare for future floods. Big data also can help, to fight climate change faster. Correlation between big data and the climate change, will help a lot in this 21st century because can monitor, provide real-time and accurate insight for natural process analytic. Also, for example, global, forest watch was developed to protect, biodiversity in Amazon. Uh, Also, there's a model gives the ability to track the interaction of terrestrial and marine habitat to project the consequence of human impact. A lot of, of use this new technology. So the biggest challenge that our planet is currently facing might benefit from this new technology, cloud of everything, artificial intelligence, IoT, 5G, big data, and cloud computing will help a lot. So AI and IoT, for example, can reduce the e-waste with this solution and leverage IoT and AI for space security. A report by for example, who that 97% of towns in low and middle income nation with more than 100,000 don't match who air quality guidelines. So we use this technology to match, with the required. Also, can utilize Internet of Things and artificial intelligence to enhance renewable energy technology for implementing IoT and AI for water preservation. So as a community, we proceed to face huge environmental challenge. So use of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things for the environment is one of the most useful tool in our fight for the environment balance. Business organization also can implement Internet of Things and IoT solution, not only in Asia, in USA, but also in Africa and Arab country. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor David Smith.
Sharif, good topic today, and I love what Dr. Sum said as he went through listing some of the technologies that are applicable. If you look today at the global capital markets, and particularly how do you mobilize these global capital markets, they can really be a extremely powerful force to achieve a sustainable future for humanity. And part of the challenges, as you see coming out of COP, the others, is how do you get the financial community? How do you get the governments? How do you get the commercial companies? And yes, even how do you get the private citizens to work together to mobilize the capital markets, which are for the most part private capital markets, for greater impact? And that is one of the challenges you begin to look at as you go forward. And there's multiple types of capital markets, and you see the primary markets, uh, which issues primarily new securities, other than you see the secondary markets, and you're seeing the same type of primary, secondary capital markets emerging as you look at how they can be mobilized for sustainability. And one of the challenges as you look, particularly at the primary markets, is how do you motivate the people who are investing, who are doing the underwriting groups? How do you get the investment banks and everything to set an initial price for an offering where the results are very different because there's sustainability? And we kind of know by years of what we taught in business schools and others of how to do price setting if I'm representing a commercial company, for example, or representing commodities. But when I begin to look at sustainability, that's a much harder challenge. And particularly as I look at sustainability, as I'm looking at really a global environment more. One of the reasons we have capital markets around for uh, the commercial side is we have capital market exchanges in many of the countries around the world. You know, I can go to a Singapore exchange, I can come to the New York exchange here, I can go to others. And we're trying to begin to look at how do we do that around this sustainability and how to mobilize those types of markets. The outputs from COPs last year began to establish actually some $1 trillion funds that we can begin to go and apply to do sustainability projects, to look at different ways to address many of the issues that we've talked about. But you know, how do we take those and move them? How do we move those into the emerging markets? Because if you look at the emerging markets and the developing economies, they count for almost half of the total global greenhouse emissions and almost a third of the energy related emissions. However, just doing a quick analysis, the volume of capital currently being deployed to help transition these developing nations to lower carbon sources of energy is insufficient, really, given the size of the climate challenges. And how do we begin to work that pipeline to address them? Um, Developed nations have a much more stable uh, financial infrastructure to deal with the capital markets than many of the developing nations do. And you know, the news though is not really all bad as you look at these. How you mobilize these capital markets? Investments renewable energy capacity jumped almost 40% in the last 5 years, and we saw you also saw about a 25% drop in fossil fuel fired capacity, which are invested in these markets. And renewables attracted about 15% more capital than the fossil sources in there. And we're beginning to see supply chain and other things begin to jump in and apply in these areas. But I'd like to just step back 1 second and uh, tag up on what Dr. Masur said earlier, in that technology is part of it. When I was an executive at uh, a couple of the big consortia in the United States in the technology area at MCC and Sematech, we used to have a saying that we used that what we were doing to advance technology to recover markets was necessary but not sufficient. And I think as we look at what we're doing with the funding of sustainable projects, it's necessary but it's not sufficient for us to meet our goals as we go forward. No, we have to look at not just how do we recover from what we've done and transition to new sources, but we need to look at it in light of a circular economy view where it's there. I was at a workshop last week, and we were talking with a bunch of the electric vehicle experts and the energy experts. And one of the key takeaways I came out of there with is we got in a discussion about what do you do when electric vehicle batteries need to be replaced. In most instances that they cited, the cost to put a new battery in an electric vehicle exceeds the value of the vehicle. So in essence, electric vehicles become throwaway. They're not a sustainable part of a circular economy. And but yet we're investing a lot of money out of some of the sustainable energy funds and transitioning as rapidly as we can into electric vehicles. But we're not understanding the full impact of those yet. And yes, I would love to use all the advances I have in the different forms of machine learning, AI, as I can begin to use the vast majority of sensors, from geospatial sensors to all the Internet of Things speakers, like he was talking about, and beginning to do fusion and use that larger data source to help drive decisions. But we need to do it in a global view. Uh, Dr. Sharif, you've heard me talk before, is that many of the places we deal with sustainability today we tend to do local or maybe regional. But even when we do it at the national level, it's still necessary but not sufficient again. What our neighbor country does affects us as well. Even though we might have a perfect policy in our country, it needs to go beyond our borders. It needs to become a global initiative to apply these technologies to collect this data uh, and to develop tools that can cross the geopolitical lines, that can cross commercial lines to be able to build a model and apply things like digital twin technology, where we can model the life cycle, where we can model the ecosystem and understand the true impacts. If I just do a first glance at the benefits of electric vehicles, they look like fantastic until you begin to understand that most of them become throwaway and they're going to actually add to the problem down the road as opposed to be the solution there, unless we have some tremendous breakthroughs that let us look at what to do with spent batteries. That lets us look at how we lower the cost of batteries. That let us look and say, well, maybe when I replace a battery, maybe I can replace it with a hydrogen fuel cell and begin to use hydrogen power in using the same car frame to go forward with. So those are some of the issues, Sharif, with how do you mobilize these capital markets. The outputs from the COP27, I hope are promising. Uh, the last COP was very interesting and began to put money, but if you look also at the statistics, only a very, very small percentage of that money has been effectively deployed yet. And so it's not just putting the money in place, it's how do we deploy it where it's needed, and how do we deploy it globally, particularly in the developing nations, which, as I said before, do not really have the financial infrastructure, the financial professionals, and the government infrastructure and professionals to be able to go and uh, take an increasing share of the money set aside in this capital market strategy to deal with sustainability. So, Sharif, that's my opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Ching.
By the way, hello, Sam, Musa, Doctor, and hello, David. In any case, climate change is a global affair which will affect us long into the future. I would like to give an overall view. Okay, I studied this subject quite thoroughly. Okay, and the reason I studied because I want to give this overall view. Okay, the overall view is this: there are three types of societies. Okay, politics oriented, money oriented, knowledge oriented. Okay, now we're dealing with the two organizations sponsoring this COP27. COP, for people who are not familiar, COP means Conference of the Parties. Okay, so it really involved the world, the global sector. Two organizations, World Bank, United Nations. Okay, this organization is supposed to be knowledge oriented. But knowledge cannot do much. The technology, they cannot do much. Okay, both of you, sort of talk about this. Therefore, this time, the only time the COP was successful was the Paris Agreement. Everybody signed this. Okay. They want to keep the temperature 2 degrees, not more than 2 degrees above the pre-industrial time. So what they do this time is they are talking about money oriented. Okay. So they are moving from knowledge to money. Okay. Let me give you a rough description of the indication of each of this: politics, money, and knowledge. Okay. Politics has the main problem of having leaders who have sacrificed their principles in order to win votes, in order to be a centralist. After a person lost his principle, he tend to practice evil. Okay. So today you see, in the US, it's all evil politics. Okay. China tried to do knowledge, but it also practice evil politics. This whole thing, politics is because it forces the leaders to be centralist. Okay, everyone has his own idea, but he has to be a centralist. He has to sacrifice some of his principle. Okay, this type of people, you use them as leaders, we have problems. Okay, it looks all dirty. Okay, but this is politics. We're not talking about politics today. We're talking about money and the knowledge. What's wrong with money? Money-oriented society only go for short-term monetary returns. They don't look long-term. Okay, they are not looking for solutions. As long as you can make money, that will satisfy money-oriented. Okay, so now we are going from knowledge organization, try to focus on money-oriented society. But the amount of money they are offering is very small, and the amount of money they can use is also very small. So basically, pole science, I'm the founder of pole science. I would divide, you see, there's 16 methods of reasoning in pole science. Okay, each method of reasoning defines a culture. For example, today we're most advanced nation are in the age of science. They are in the scientific culture. Okay, it's based on experimentation. Okay, experimental empirical verification. So most of them are in the science culture. But I feel, pole science feel, there's no way to solve the climate problem completely just with science. You have to look into social science. You have to look into infinity. Okay, David pointed this out quite well. Actually, he already set the stage for me. Okay, we have to look at the infinite spreadsheet. We have to look at all aspects relate to this climate change. For example, one of the major examples. Okay, today I can give you very quickly the country which is polluted the most. Obvious, the most is China. Okay, which is twice as produce pollution as the USA, which is the second. China, USA, India, Russia, Japan, Germany, Iran, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Canada. These 10 countries pollute most, but China pollute most. But China also like to have global warming. Okay. The reason is China has very high altitude places on its west. Okay, this couple of years, the first time the Yellow River turned clear. Because global warming will put more moisture in the air. So it produces more rain. And China loves to have rain. Okay. Once you see they are benefited by this global warming. Why should they control global warming? They will hesitate. They will think this thing over. Okay. So you need to take all the factors into consideration. All these things are not mentioned in all this discussion. Okay. Every factor has to be taken into consideration. And the consideration must take into infinity. After you have all the technology, you must translate everything in terms of numbers. So infinite spreadsheet is the solution value. After you have the number, then we calculate the benefit, the long-term benefit of all this effect. So this In terms of culture level quotient, you have at least infinite species is one level above the scientific culture. Scientific culture is culture level 11, and the infinite spread is culture level 10. So you need to take consider into infinity. You need to calculate the value of the actions you make to climate change. Okay, and also another thing is another knowledge which is essential but is not discussed. That is the range of tolerance. Okay, you talk about 2 degrees. Now it's 1.7 degrees above, 1.5 degree actually above. So it's near 2 degrees. So that the range is 2 degrees. But again, this is this is too small factor. You talk to Chinese, the leaders, they say, "Oh, we got our west, everything turning green on our high plateau on the west." They love it. They say, "Okay, this first time the Yellow River turned clear." So they might love it. So you got to look. Not only that, you have to look. You see, every 40,000 years, the Earth tilt. Okay, every time Earth tilt, there's an ice age. So every 40 years, there's a small ice age. Okay, at that time, global warming will be better than worse. The Earth get too cold. Okay, most species will be eliminated, except human beings. They can produce heat. So at that time, you might want to produce heat. How do we produce heat? How do we not warming up the globe? Okay, the way, so my suggestion, very simple-minded suggestion, when you don't want to warm up the globe, you use solar and the wind. You see, it will not change matter into energy. Okay, if you burn coal, it will change matter into energy by chemical reaction. If you want lots of energy changing from matter, you need to use nuclear energy. But nuclear fission has problem with the radioactive material, so you need to use thermonuclear fusion. So eventually we will need to warm up the globe. The only way now I can see is to use nuclear fusion. When I talk about nuclear fusion, it's not like some ordinary person on the street. I'm an authority. I'm a top authority in this field. My PhD is in controlled nuclear fusion at MIT. See, I've been following this for about 50 years. Okay, so after consider all this, so this take this factor into the Chinese view, who's the most polluted nation, and also this long-term view. You see, all this United Nations, they all miss this point. But the United Nations, World Bank, they are internal finance, they are at the third level. Okay, the highest level is obviously U.S. Federal Reserve. They make decision on finance. Okay, the next level is people like Goldman Sachs. They are the CEO David. I recommend everybody to read the interview of David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, by Bloomberg. These people, they are at the second level. Then we get down to some lower level. Then finally we get to United Nations, World Bank. They're now going to produce lots of things. They need to go back to knowledge and really try to focus, getting people of knowledge serious, get involved back into knowledge. Okay, my solution is this from Posan Institute. Culture level right now is very low at 11 today. Okay, today is the scientific culture. All they know is doing experiment, get data. You need to get into mathematical rigor, complete mathematical rigor. That's one level higher. But if you really want to solve this problem, you have to get into the culture level quotient number 2. Okay, compared to today's 11, it's very far away. We must try to figure out the range of tolerance for survival, human survival, short term, long term. And we have so much knowledge to catch up. And all we today we're doing is try to change from knowledge into money. Okay, knowledge only into money. Try to take a shortcut. Okay, so basically this is what the United Nations and World Bank usually do. They are not the big player in this whole game. Okay, so what my organization is doing is we're cooperating with some very important people, and we are trying to solve the current financial crisis facing the world, not the climate crisis. Okay, the financial crisis again is infinite spreadsheet. Try to make the invisible hand visible. Okay, this is the easy problem. The climate change is a very very big problem. It's not something that this COP can solve. COP 27 or whatever they keep going and they keep going. I'm just here to try to say what our position, whole science stands. I hope they will pay some attention to this overall view of society and of knowledge, of culture. Okay. What we really need is to raise the culture level of the world. Step up. Okay. The most advanced nations today are in the scientific culture. Okay. And most other underdeveloped nations are less than the scientific culture. And I've been asking Dr. Sharif to do the double hitting. You learn the double hitting. Okay. This is not trivial. You learn physics. Okay, then you want to learn artificial intelligence. This is fuzzy artificial intelligence, very difficult. Okay, today, in order to touch, you have to have a resolution, range of tolerance of 2 milliseconds. But today, the best they can do is 20 milliseconds. So it does not overlap. There's no solution for robot touch. Okay, then you have to learn self-generating neural network. You see, that is cultural level up 2 levels. Then finally, you have to learn fuzzy logic. Okay, so this double hitting involves physics, complete logic, and finally fuzzy logic. Okay, you have so much knowledge involved in this. So this is not trivial. So the society, what we lack today is really knowledge. I'm glad United Nations World Bank are looking into it. I hope, because they are in no way they can compete with Federal Reserve, no way they can compete with the commercial banks of the United States, the largest banks in the world. They should still focus on knowledge, and we're willing to discuss with them. Okay. But anytime people who cannot get anywhere, they go to United Nations, go to World Bank. Okay, it's the last resort. It's not really the most, but still they should, because they represent knowledge, they should come out and really serious looking into knowledge. Okay, basically that's my criticism of this situation, because they admit they're not effective. Okay, the only effective they keep talking about is this Paris Agreement. Okay, I
Thank you.
wish they would still go into this knowledge. If they listen to this talk, they should come to talk to me. I give them one more time the whole picture we have. Okay, how difficult it is. Okay. And also they should look into the current financial crisis. There's so many crises going on. Climate crisis is probably not the most serious, but it is what it definitely should look into. It's a subject for very, very good discussion. All this tax, carbon credit, they are just partial. Everything is partial. Partial is not going to solve the problem. We need to have an overall view. Then we decide which way the whole world should go after. So I'm trying to make this Dr. Sharif's forum more overall. Let the world come in. Okay, we got a very experienced Dr. Sousa knows it direct there in Egypt. Okay, in Africa, and David Smith is an expert. He look at everything, so they should listen to this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Asim, as you are from Africa, do you think this COP27 can fulfill uh, the local demand of Africa or the emerging economy? Or what is happening with this COP27? If you give us some example and explanation.
Thank you so much for your, intelligent question. It's a very intelligent question. And also, I say again that I am proud that Egypt, hosts this, COP27. I think that COP27 is, means that, the conference number 27, for this climate change, for the agreement of climate change. So it means that this not as the first step, for the climate change, but this, we continue, the effort of the previous, conference, in climate change, like the 26th conference, like happened before. But I think this year is more essential because of what happened, in all the world, because the wars that happened, in Russia and Ukraine, and this war, affects not only Egypt, Arab country, Africa, but affect, all the world. We all need, money and budget and, people, to be like one person or one man to, overcome the climate change, that we all face in all the world. So we need to unite, all the people on all the world. We're looking also for a peace. We're looking for a peace because, without peace, we cannot do anything good, for like adoption of the technology, for, overcome, the crisis that we face from the climate change. First, we have to live, in a peace. So this peace, will help a lot. Without peace, we cannot do anything. That's why, this COP27 held in Sharm el Sheikh, the city of, of peace, because we would like, to send a message to all the world that the first, step we have to make before, all the effort we can do for climate change. We have to look for a peace. The peace is, if we have peace, we can do anything. If we cannot have peace, we cannot do anything. For example, you are talking now about the economy or the budget we need for the, adoption of this, uh, technology that will help a lot, like IoT, artificial intelligence, 5G, not only in Asia, in Europe, in America, but also in African and Arab countries. So how can we adopt and, we implement this technologies that need a lot of knowledge, that need a lot of, ways, that need, a lot of budget, a lot of money, so that we can adopt. The only solutions that, the money or the budget that we, are going to spend for a war, and a lot of, manage, and we spend, for example, to buy weapons, and a lot of, damage habits. We have to save this money and use this money to invest, to make investment, in all the procedures for the new technology, for the knowledge, to, to implement all the procedure for climate change. So we need, to hand over this, earth to the new generation in a better way, not in a COVID-19, in a bad economy, in climate change crisis. We need, to, hand over this, earth to the new generation in a better way, as we got it from the previous generation. That's my opinion. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is my opinion.
looks like Sharif might be frozen. Uh, I'll go
Yeah.
ahead and
Did you
jump in.
hear me? Did you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I think
Thank
the
you.
problem in Chief side. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sharif, are
Yes,
you there?
Professor David.
You know, everything that's been said so far has been very good as you look around the table today. And the fact that COP27 is going on right now, I hope some of the people who are attending COP27 actually have the ability to hear some of this discussion because it's one where we need to raise above the regional politics to begin to look at how to take this action on a global scale. We have the base technology in different pieces around the world, but we need to begin to look at how to interconnect them. You know, one of the age old problems is we have the data, but how do we find it? We have the data in various stovepipes, but how do we get the tools we've developed to get there? And some of the things that Hughes talked about with some of the polyscience and things are some of the tools we have to use for that. Some of the tools as we look at complexity theory needs to be applied as we look at how to take the outputs from the COP and how we look at the funding and the capital markets to begin to deal with it. Um, COVID caused us as a society to look at some global trends and rebalance how we do things. We went from massive offshoring to looking about, gee, should we balance where we have manufacturing done? Should we balance where we have key components put together? And we see action that will reach fruition probably in the next 3 years because it takes time to build new factories, start up old factories, things, build capability to do that. The same type of effort as we use to balance this part of the world economy, we should begin to use to look at sustainability. Um, I've been involved with consortia, with industry, with governments, with startups and universities around the world. And I know we have the capabilities and the competencies that can be used to enact change in here. But it's always our challenge of how do we connect competencies and capabilities? How do we put in place the group intelligence that is necessary to tackle this type of problem. As Hugh and Dr. Soot have said, um, there's many elements of this, and some of the approaches of the interaction between systems, like Hugh was talking about, between global warming versus the broader part of climate changes equates into complexity theory, where some of our tools, such as digital twins and modeling across digital twins, will give us some really good insights. But I'd like to go back to something I've talked about on some of the other programs before. And to me, our topic today is a perfect example of what we see when we look at a systems to systems problem. And in my specialty of looking at wicked problems inside of systems to systems problems, it's been really well stated today with all the speakers that looking at sustainability, looking at climate change, looking at how to finance it, how to distribute the money so that it is an effective global solution versus a company, a industry, a nation is one of the big challenges. And how do we, as the topic says, mobilize those markets? And we need to do it as a system of systems where every part of the system affects other systems. And if I make a change in one system, I really need to make changes in the other systems as well too, because they're all connected and they're all interactive. And we are dealing in a classic wicked problem scenario here. One of the hallmarks of wicked problems is that as you begin to address a wicked problem, it continues to morph, it continues to change, so that it is not a static problem, which is one of the reasons why it's a wicked problem. And when you look at systems of systems problems, such as we're talking about in today's broadcast, it is one that will continue to change and morph as you go across the different various elements of the system. And as such, we cannot use a linear approach, a simplistic approach to solve these issues. You really have to begin to understand it in the context that is fully stated as a systems of systems problem, and begin to use tools and modeling, and particularly collaborative tools, because you, like I said before, what you do in one industry, in one nation, doesn't solve this problem. It begins to have to go much more broadly than that. And as Dr. Seuss started out earlier, it's not in just one industry. You have to go across all these industries and all these areas because of the interactions between them. And because of that, the system of systems uh, methodologies really have to be applied, because this is a complex systems problem, and it is a wicked problem by its very definition as you look at how to deal across these systems. And there's many different types of science that needs to be employed in this. You know, Dr. Hugh has part of the polymath and polyscience in there. I go back to a concept that I learned under one of my mentors, Dr. George Kosmetsky, and it was, let's apply the technopolis concept to it, where you pull together the public sector, the private sector, the academics, and let's harness the knowledge of not one of them by themselves, but all of them combined, and not all those combined within one region, but combining those globally. And yes, is that a challenge? It's going to be. But the fact that we're continuing to pull COP meetings together every year and trying to put band-aids on this without the type of integration and global efforts that's needed is making it even more difficult as we go. And the fact that as we try to solve this, it will continue to evolve. And what we started to do out of COP 2 years ago is vastly different today, because the problem sets, these systems of systems, have continued to evolve and change and morph. And so this is a continuous problem that requires continuous action, and not just a project thrown at it to say we're making our efforts. So Dr. Sharif, I think this is kind of almost my concluding remarks on it, because it's that type of problem and the type of systems to systems approach that Dr. Sharif, you and the World Talent Economic Forum are trying to pull to bear on it, is some of the type of precursors that are really required for us to have a truly meaningful impact to this. So I'm privileged to be on the panel with these other great speakers and Dr. Sharif. Thank you for letting me be part of it.
Thank you, Professor David Smith. Professor Ching? Yes.
Yeah, the goal of education is to raise the cultural level of a person or a society. Okay, people have different views. They think education is for certain things, technology, all sorts of things. But you put it all together is the cultural level. Okay, they are altogether Paul science defined 16 levels. The top 1 to 8 are the fuzzy logic level. The bottom is the current type of exact logic. Today we believe exact logic is the foundation of knowledge. But we need to look into fuzzy logic. Okay, David has raised this question about system. Okay, in fuzzy logic is central to this discussion, okay, of problem keep changing. Fuzzy logic is for solving variant problems, which change continuously in the future to infinity. Okay, so because fuzzy logic defines range of tolerance instead of just one solution, it has a range. Okay, so when the future changes, it automatically can accommodate the change. Okay, the reality function in fuzzy logic, not in exact logic. So that is the first point. Okay, and also this this 16 level of a culture level will eventually lead to, okay, now the reason for this 16 level, we want in the future when we talk to somebody, we want to ask them what kind of society you are talking about. Okay, you can talk about money oriented, political oriented, knowledge oriented. Also, when they start to reason with you, you have to ask them what kind of level, what kind of method of reasoning you use. Each method of reasoning will define his cultural level. So we need to raise above the current cultural level, which is science. Okay, this is the problem. All these things, what are all these things come to? All these things will eventually lead us. We are my position right now. I'm talking to the whole world. I'm talking to some very important people just in a few weeks. Okay, and I my final purpose is the next new world, which is what David is looking at. Okay, he's probably one of the person who should come in and and into this next new world. The next new world would collect all the best top thinkers to communicate either in one place or just in their local place to share their thinking, okay, in knowledge, and try to see if we can come up with the overall knowledge solution. So what one of the person I'm dealing with is Patrick Freeman. Okay, I mention him quite frequently, but I'm dealing with him every week, every month. Okay, he's the grandson of Milton Freeman. Okay, he's tried to create new governments so all the government can compete. What he's really tried to do, in my opinion, he's tried to create utopias. Okay, throughout history, people have been trying to create utopias, but so far most of them are unsuccessful. But it's not quite true. Okay, in my own case, I have collected 10 top thinkers in the world. They are all very individualistic, but I work with 10 of them. Okay, all their ideas come together. It's very, very powerful. So I have seen a successful knowledge utopia in the last 50 years. Okay. Also my family has a house in China for 700 years. Okay, so it's a family utopia. Okay, house that can last for 700 years. The family all come together. It's the largest single family house in China. It's called Zen 17 houses. So it's a family utopia. Okay, so Patrick Freeman is trying to create a governance utopia. He's in Honduras. He has to negotiate with the government so he can have his own governing laws. So he can create society which will work. But there is one technology utopia I have witnessed among the 10 top thinkers I have. The person who led this technology utopia is KTD. KTD, when Taiwan got kicked out of the United Nations, Taiwan was desperate to save itself from thinking. Okay, so KT Lee went around the world to invite all the Chinese overseas scholars to come back to Taiwan to give them 2-year appointment in universities, in companies, just 2 years, okay, funding. And the result of that was the Taiwan economic miracle. And also today, Taiwan controls the chip manufacturer. Okay, so this is a success example of a technology utopia. Okay, so I would discuss with Patrick on this point. I say, okay, we can copy his example. Also, China today is the world factory. It's all follows two people. One is KTD, the other is Milton Friedman. Okay, so we have an example of technology utopia. So now the world, I think what the world needs today is to find the next new world. The next new world will not be in the United States. The United States is the current new world. Okay, it collects all the most best people from all over the world and try to build up this country. But this country has still it's a governance based on the idea of republicanism. It looks like it's not completely working. Okay, now it's falling to the hand of politicians. Okay, and also the whole legal system is against the idea of rule by laws of reality. Okay, so the going quickly is that this society changes from divine laws to Milton Friedman, free market regulated by invisible hand. Then finally, we're suggesting that we need to observe laws, non-viable laws of reality first. Okay, in other words, the solution of value. Okay, we want to discover laws which regulate us. Okay, so the United States now is already trapped in this idea of legal system. Okay, we can all witness how much trouble this U.S. legal system gives us. It's not going to work. Okay. It is based on this idea of John Locke to have some kind of watchdog over all the others in the final result of settling a dispute. But there is many evidence that we can have a rational society, a cooperative society instead of competitive society to create in a new world. Okay, so my idea is that the education is for raising the cultural level. If you want to have China, you go raise their cultural level. You want to have US, you go raise their cultural level. But it's not possible if they're trapped in their old cultural level. So we need to find the new world. It doesn't have to be territorial. It can be just thinkers communicate closely. Okay, but it's best to have a place. The place was demonstrated to be a utopia is Taiwan by KT Lee. Okay, so it's all done. We have all these ideas, also all this performance. My feeling is the world today must be raised. The cultural level must be raised from science to social science, so we can solve our financial crisis, solve our military crisis, eventually we solve our health crisis. The pandemic was started by nature and solved by nature. Okay. The human beings has not reached the age of life science. And now we're talking about the environmental crisis, which is far more involved, far more difficult than all these other crises. We cannot solve the simple crisis. We try to solve the most complex crisis. And what we need is we need to collect all the best minds into one place at the next new world. And the next new world has been demonstrated by various type of utopias. It is possible. Okay, so I will invite people who can, who are top thinkers. You think they're top thinkers, recommend to me. I talk to them. I will have some government invite them to come and visit us, and we can discuss. Just like in the time of Katie Lee, he just invite everybody, millions of technical people. Okay, focus totally. Everybody come to Taiwan, get 2 years of appointment, and some of them stay there and look at what happened now. Okay. Taiwan is the top chip manufacturer. Okay, not because they are doing this chip, because they got so many technical people. If they want to chip, they got this support. Okay, so my goal is first the educational goal is to raise the cultural level. The action, the implementation is to look for the next new world, and also look for all the top thinkers to put their ideas together. Okay, here Dr. Mosa and Dr. Smith, I will have a government invite you for 2 years appointment. You can just enjoy your life, and even Dr. Sharif, you want to get a position, of teaching, very comfortable, but you contribute things. I went to Taiwan, I brought them the first ultrasound machine. Okay, 1974. That's when the ultrasound just got invented. I get it from Stanford Research Institute. I brought the tape, 8mm tape to Taiwan and show it to them. Today, Taiwan has the highest density of ultrasound in hospitals. Everybody uses ultrasound in Taiwan. And Taiwan has more nearsighted people and more left-handed side people, because the ultrasound, when they used with too much intensity, it causes some problem in the brain, and it causes people to be more likely left-handed and also nearsighted. So it's all my fault. But anyway, just inviting top thinkers to a nation will create this economic miracle, also this utopia, technology utopia. So I'm try to do the best I can.
Thank you.
Time.
Thank you.
Inviting
Thank you.
people.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Tomorrow we have another sessions on COP27, and this month we have a series of work, series of dialogue. So I request Dr. Asim, Professor Ching, David Smith, you can join in our dialogue, and you can uplift the emerging economy youth community through World Talent Economy Forum. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dr. Sharif. Thank you.
Thank you.